Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And you know what day today is. Yep, that's right. It's the day that I answer your questions. I've only got 2 this week, and generally, if I only have 1 or 2 questions, I will try to delve very deeply into those questions. One of them is not something that can really be delved deeply into, and the other one is a topic that is probably best handled, or would probably best be handled, by Brian Sovereign and Stephanie Murphy of Sex and Science Hour, but I will give it a shot. And because, this is a radio-friendly podcast, yes, I know it's a podcast, it doesn't have to be radio-friendly. However, I do like to try to keep it radio-friendly so that I can remain as a podcast available on iHeartRadio. iHeartRadio is an app that you can download for your phone, and they've got things where you can listen to some streaming radio stations, like actual radio stations. You can listen to find an artist, or you can listen to podcasts. So I like having that as that outlet. I don't really know how many people listen on the iHeartRadio, specifically to this podcast on iHeartRadio. But again, I do like having that outlet because the more outlets, the better. So, question number 1, and this is kind of funny, based on the timestamp of when this email was received, was about the time while I was recording where I said, if you send your questions now, obviously I can't see it now because I'm recording and I don't check my emails during the show, so I'll answer the question next week. The email came in, ironically enough, about the time that I made that statement. And, so it's kind of like somebody was reading my mind. So the question is, I'm about to tune in to episode 449. That's the episode where I made the statement, which is what I think is absolutely hilarious here. He says, have you ever eaten groundhog? Maybe you'd enjoy this, and he links over to a video. And normally, if somebody sends me a link to a video, I don't really watch it, but this was rather interesting. It was, I forget the title, but I think it was killing, preparing, and cooking a groundhog. And I was like, oh, let me watch this. Because mainly I wanted to see the cooking part. There was a lot more cleaning of the groundhog than I expected. But the stew that was being made at the end actually kind of looked like it might be pretty good if you kept the celery far, far away from it. Like, the celery should not even have looked anywhere near the stew. If the groundhog wanted to eat the celery before becoming part of the stew, that's fine. But please keep celery away from my food. That said, no, I've never had groundhog, but that stew, again, did look really good. It was being prepared in a crock pot. I will post the link in the show notes. You can watch the video at your leisure. And now we go to the question that if you have children or young adults that you might not want to hear words about a delicate, sensitive subject, you might want to tune out for the next roughly 3 minutes. I plan to continue this through the end of this segment, so about 2.5 more minutes at this point. I will give a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You've been warned. Tune back in 2.5 minutes. Question: why does anal sex hurt so damn much? And this is the question that I definitely think would be better answered by doctors Brian Sovereign and Stephanie Murphy. However, I will give it a whack. Did some researching here and came across a website out of the UK, NHS, which is the National Health Service. Yes, I know I went to a government website. However, there's a question about, is sex painful? And they mention in here that pain during sex can be common if you're not relaxed. They specifically have a paragraph about anal sex that, again, says it can be painful for both men and women the first time, and there may be a little bleeding. There are things you can do to lessen the pain, such as slow down the penetration, use lots of water-based lubrication. Some people find that using a finger beforehand can actually help. And then I found an article from Cosmo. Yes, I know I'm going to all of the sites that I should not be going to, but Cosmo has 8 tips, and I'm not going to read these in depth, but number 1, it says it should not hurt. This is where lube comes in. Number 2, start small. So as was previously mentioned, maybe use a finger first. Shallower is better to start. Keep away any rapid fire movement. Communication is key, and communication is really key for any relationship, any intimate encounters. Communication, definitely key. As always, these links will be in the show notes. We're about to change subjects, so if you push the little people out of the room, you can bring them back in now if you want, or not. I'm not telling you what to do. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Coinbase is a simple and secure online Bitcoin wallet for sending, receiving, and storing Bitcoin. Coinbase also allows you to buy and sell Bitcoin using a bank account or use their tools to accept Bitcoin as a merchant. Coinbase has more than 1 million consumer wallets and is trusted by over 25,000 merchants, including Overstock.com, Khan Academy, Reddit, and of course, FPP. Get started at coinbase.fppradio.com. You can support FPP Radio by joining the Fans program. Fans are friends, allies, and numerous supporters. Fans help FPP afford to produce more original content. You can join the Fans program for as little as $1 per month through Patreon and get perks like ad-free versions of FPP Radio News and Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And before we change topics, I want to make sure that I tell you about Roberts and Roberts Brokerage. Since 1977, and simple math lets you know that, today we're roughly the middle of 2017. 1977, 40 years ago. So yes, for 40 years, Roberts and Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases, and they've even permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. So pick up your telephone, pause the show. Well, not right now because you need the telephone number. So after I give you the telephone number, pause the show, make the call, and then start listening again. Because they will give you some knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760. Okay, you can pause. Make that phone call. And I'm guessing you've unpaused now. Yeah, you didn't need to make the phone call. I just wanted to make sure that you actually talk to somebody because it's nice to talk to people, right? You could have also gone online, rrbi.co. Maybe you were feeling kind of antisocial and you didn't actually pick up the phone because you knew it was a trick. You knew that there was a website. Yeah, of course there's a website, rrbi.co. Changing topics now, let's talk about things that people don't realize they do because they repress their own feelings. Yeah, that's right. People repress feelings. Whoever would have thunk it, right? Whoever would have thunk it that people repress feelings and emotions? Certainly not me, he said with a very straight face. Yes, I know that people repress their feelings and emotions. I talk about it all the time. I get flack for not repressing feelings. Not by you. You are absolutely an amazing person, and you never say anything negative to me. You might say negative things about me, but, I know who you are. Actually, I don't necessarily know who you are. I might know who you are, but I'm not getting, listener emails or anything that are mean and negative, but just, I'll share something on Facebook, and then people are like, you shouldn't be sharing this, blah, blah, blah. As I've said numerous times before, here's the list of emotions that are socially acceptable for men to share in public. Anger. That's the end of the list. That is the list. But what are people doing that they don't realize they're doing because they're repressing all of their emotions? Well, I've got an article from Thought Catalog, and it begins, emotional repression. The tactic we're all taught growing up, but loath to admit we're engaging in. And let me just sort of pause here, and you might be asking, how are we taught this growing up? I can almost guarantee at some point in your childhood you heard the following sentence, either verbatim or a different version of this. If you don't quit your crying, I'll give you something to cry about. You heard that, right? I heard it a couple of times, and the one time I had a big giant dent in the top of my head. Yet, if we ever meet in person or the next time you see me, ask me about the dent in my head. I'll tell you the story. In a world that teaches us to be strong and unwavering at all cost, it can be embarrassing to admit that we actually have feelings, that we feel something. Oh no, how dare we? So we do the next best thing and push that feeling deep down into the depths of our psyche. But of course, all repressed feelings resurface eventually. Here are 10 counterintuitive ways in which we deal with our unexpressed emotions. Note, as with all lists of here's things that, fill in the blank group does, or here's things that fill in the blank group doesn't do. This is not meant to be an all-encompassing list. It's meant to be, here are 10 things that you might be doing. And just because you do one or more of the things on this list, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are repressing emotions. If you are repressing emotions and you know you're repressing emotions, but you don't do any of these things, well, congratulations. Here's a cookie. Some people deal with this, and I know people hate talking about, anything deemed collectivist or absolutes. So I always feel the need to give these little, basically warning labels, trigger warnings. And isn't it funny that the people that, go off the most about trigger warnings are the people that seem to be getting triggered the most? Look at all these snowflakes and their trigger warnings. You said we, and you actually meant you or that other group. Yeah! As Larry Sharp said over the weekend, Larry Sharp, former vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party's nomination, he was so close to actually getting the nomination. But he was at an event last weekend, and he said, there's snowflakes on the left and on the right. Like, we're all snowflakes. But it's only the, right snowflakes that ever called anybody snowflake. It's absolutely hilarious when you look at it from sort of an outsider's perspective. So what are the 10 things that you are probably doing because you are repressing your emotions? Well, I've rambled long enough to where I don't have time to start telling. Like, I could read the first sentence, but I'm not going to do that because I'd be cut off in the middle of the sentence. So stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com. Born into a devastating world and raised among the crowd, the Cloudwalker assumes a new identity and begins the unrelenting quest for truth. In this epic journey, he discovers dark secrets about aspects of his previous life that he once trusted. Through the Journal of the Cloudwalker, he shares both the traumatic hardships and the eternal beauties of his experiences. Fueled in the beginning by his unsettling thoughts and emotions, he learns how to find peace with everything he has woken up to. Dear Society by the Cloudwalker is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I am your host, Darryl W. Perry, the Liberty Penguin, the Wombat, the uncut cocaine of libertarianism. And while I'm thinking about it, I want to make sure that I mention, during the week of Pork Fest and Somalia Fest being an unofficial, not organized event that's at the same place as Pork Fest, the Pork Fest being the Porcupine Freedom Festival, that I like to refer to as the Festival of Porcupines. Hashtag no porcupines were harmed in the making of the festival. But during that week, I'm not sure what the internet situation is going to be like. So there may or may not be episodes between June 19th and June 23rd. Just a warning, I don't know, and I won't know until, the 16th, I believe. I think that's when I'm going up there. Maybe 17th, I'm not entirely sure, but it's one of those things to where I'm not going to be able to give you a pre-warning of, hey, there's not a show, if the internet isn't really going that well. Like, I might be able to get on Twitter or Facebook very briefly. I don't know. I know in years past the internet situation has not been the best. That said, let me now jump into the article of 10 things that you might possibly maybe be doing, possibly because you're repressing your emotions, maybe not. All of those caveats aside, number 1 on the list, taking care of everyone else. Let's be serious. It's a lot easier to deal with someone else's emotions than it is to deal with your own. So, you spend a lot of time sorting out your loved one's emotional crises. It makes you feel like you've got this whole feelings thing down, when in reality, you're just avoiding confronting your own. Number 2, disappearing from people's lives for long periods of time. Every once in a while, someone rudely evokes emotions in you that you don't feel capable of handling. So, you just bail for a couple of months until you can be reasonably certain that the emotion in question has been buried deeply enough not to resurface for a long time. Now, this is not to say that every time you cut off communication with somebody, it's because they've stirred up some emotion that you don't want to deal with. Sometimes, just as the saying goes, life happens. There are times where you just lose touch with somebody through no real fault of your own or, through no fault of theirs. Just, life happens. Number 3, and this is one that definitely sort of, hits me, constantly staying busy. If you're constantly sprinting from one commitment to another, your emotions can't possibly catch up. Becoming a low-key workaholic is an excellent alternative to actually feeling feelings. And it can be a profitable alternative as well. But again, just because, you're busy doesn't necessarily mean that you're earning a lot of money. And just because you're, a workaholic or trying to avoid feelings doesn't mean that, they don't catch up to you. So, you might be busy with something, but it doesn't take your full attention. So you still have those emotions sort of creep up and you're like, no, I want to repress you. And then, you wind up just getting busier because you don't want to deal with it. Now, I do have an article that I will not be able to get into, or at least I don't think I will, that is titled 10 Effective Tips to Prevent Burnout. Some of these could also help you deal with your emotions. Number 4 on the list of things you might be doing because you're repressing your emotions: continuously claiming that you're fine. You are fine. You think you feel fine if the way fine feels is kind of bleak and dead inside with an undercurrent of inexplicable anxiety. But, there's the joke, and I'll just go ahead and tell the joke because one of my female friends shared it on Facebook, where it was the, girl 911, what's your problem? And I forget what the thing was, and it said, did you try posting I'm fine on Facebook? Or something along those lines. But, that's one of the jokes of, the wife has a problem and the husband, what's wrong? Nothing, I'm fine. And the guy thinks, oh, well, she said I'm fine, so she must be fine. And then he goes away and then he gets in trouble because, everything's not fine. So just saying you're fine doesn't mean that things are fine. So if things actually are fine, you'll never actually say things are fine. Right? Which kind of goes to number 5. You develop irrational anxieties. When you don't actually acknowledge your feelings, they still come up, just in irrational ways. And we'll continue with the other ways you might be repressing your feelings here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Find A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty by Darryl W. Perry on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs, with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to ZOG.Ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, ZOG.Ninja, code FPP.
This is Jeremy Scott, host of Dark 30. You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. And no, we will not have time to get into the ways that you can prevent burnout, but I'll do you a favor. I'll go ahead and put the link in the show notes for you. And then I might cover it next week. I might forget about it over the weekend because I've got a horrible short-term memory and repressed emotions and all of that. And, I've got things to work out. Like, we all have things to work out. It's just whether or not you admit that you have things to work out. And, if you're constantly claiming everything's fine, things aren't fine. Because when things are fine, nobody says things are fine. Number 6 on the list. And I think we all know people like this. They put a positive spin on everything. Your worst fear is seeing a friend tilt their head to the side sympathetically and ask how you're dealing with a recent negative event. So you beat them to the punch by immediately telling them all the awesome revelations that you've just had as a result of the negative experience. You can put a positive spin on a negative situation. You have never had to confront any real feelings because everything's just positive. See, if you just think things are positive, then they're going to be positive, right? Because things can't be positive they can't possibly be negative if you always say that they're positive. Because things are fine. Things are just excellent. They're fine. They're wonderful. Everything's positive. I'm so positive right now. Yet the people that are always positive on everything all the time, constantly, they're repressing their emotions. Of course they're going to think things are fine and wonderful. They're repressing the hell out of their emotions. Number 7, you want to plan everything ahead of time. You like to be in control of absolutely everything that happens because you're only comfortable in situations where you can predict how you're going to feel. Doing something genuinely spontaneous and leaving the door open for a surprise feeling? No, thank you. Number 8 on the list of things that some people do because they're repressing their emotions sometimes. They date the wrong people. If you never date someone who's right for you, you never have to risk becoming emotionally intimate with them. And if you can avoid emotional intimacy with others, you can avoid it within yourself. Double win. Right? Or no. Not a double win. Number 9 on the list, you turn everything into a joke. No, that's just what she said. And you present a tough-as-nails exterior. That's the list. It'll be in the show notes. And don't forget, every Friday, I answer your questions. Send those over ama.fppradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.